before your
See
plane
you in the
lands in a
morning.
place you've never been before. It's like your heart beats a little faster, your brain starts cataloging everything, and you realize you're no longer a tourist in your own head. You're really doing this. That's where I was, looking out the window, eyes locked on Mount Ararat, floating like some myth above the clouds. It didn't even feel real. The kind of mountain you don't climb, just stare at and wonder who's been watching it for thousands of years. I was about to land in Armenia. Zvartnots International Airport is small, but efficient. There's no shouting, no chaos, just this low hum, the kind of rhythm it tells you everyone here is used to waiting. I breezed through immigration, and even though I was tired from the flight, something in me was wide awake. There's a particular smell airports have. This one was a mix of cleaning product, coffee, and cold air. I don't know why, but that scent felt honest, like the country wasn't trying to be flashy. It was just being. My driver was waiting, a tall man with a big coat and bigger mustache. His name? Armin. And yes, he chuckled when I repeated it. Like the country? Exactly, he said. All of us are Armin here, even you now. He said it as a joke, but it stuck with me. Driving through Yerevan at dusk felt like flipping through two history books at the same time. One about the Soviet past, blocky buildings, faded murals, peeling paint, and the other about now. Hip cafes, cars with tinted windows, wireless billboards, neon lights. This place, I realized, is constantly reintroducing itself. Armin pointed out landmarks the way someone points to family photos. That museum, it was bombed once, he said. That bakery, the best lahmacun in town. His voice was casual, like talking about weather. I realized quickly, Armenians have learned to carry trauma like a scarf, not hidden, but worn with familiarity. All right, I've officially landed. This is home for the next few days. Not fancy, but honestly, perfect. The view is my favorite thing so far. The city isn't loud, it kind of hums. You hear the occasional car, maybe someone singing somewhere far off, but mostly, it's just still. After being surrounded by airport noise and airplane air for 10 hours, this feels like peace. I always do the same thing when I land somewhere new. Shower, unpack just enough, then get outside. I don't care how tired I am. I have to see the city, the real one. Not from blogs, not from reels, from my own feet. Yerevan at night is soft. That's the word. Soft. There's no loud music blasting, no sirens, no rush, just footsteps on stone, the occasional dog barking in the distance, and conversations happening quietly in doorways. I passed a man playing chess with himself on a park bench. He looked up, nodded, then returned to his move.
Learn Avenue is a
So I'm just
surprise.
wandering right now. It's wide, new, European in layout, lined with Zara and Apple logos, but not too crowded. It's like a modern sketch drawn on an ancient canvas. A woman walked past with a violin case. A kid ran by holding a pomegranate like it was a soccer ball. I turned the corner and there it was, a tiny church, no sign, no spotlight, just stone on stone. I stepped closer and could smell wax. Inside, one woman was lighting candles, no music, just breath and fire. And then I heard it, the duduk. I'd read about it before coming here, the Armenian flute made from apricot wood, but hearing it in person, that was something else. I don't even have words. This thing sounds like a memory. Not mine, older than that, like it belongs to everyone and no one. It made the city feel like a poem, like someone left music behind for the stone to remember. The smell pulled me across the street. Bread. Not the supermarket kind, the kind that wraps around your face and fills your lungs and makes you remember every family meal you've ever had. Can I try one? Lavash. No words exchanged, but everything understood. Warm, thin, slightly charred at the edges. That lavash was the single best thing I've eaten all month. Oh my God, you guys, this is everything. I finally made it to Republic Square, Yerevan's open heart. At night it glows, literally. Government buildings become golden giants. The square feels like a gathering place for memory, history, and people just trying to feel less alone. This is where it all happens. Protests, concerts, national celebrations, and tonight, just a few couples sitting on benches, a guy spinning his girlfriend in slow circles to music from his phone. I just stood there for a while. No camera, no phone, just stood there, breathing, listening, letting it all hit me. So that was day one. Technically just a half day, but already I feel like I've touched something real. This city doesn't scream for your attention, it just invites you to listen. And when you do, it tells you stories. In bread, in music, in silence. I've barely scratched the surface, but I can tell you this. Armenia knows who it is. It doesn't need to impress. It just is. And honestly, that's more than enough. Good night, Yerevan. You've already started to feel like a secret I'm lucky to know. There's something really beautiful about waking up in a city that's still waking up with you. No rush, no chaos, just slow shutters rising, street sweepers brushing yesterday off the sidewalks, and the smell of bread already in the air. This morning in Yerevan feels like a fresh page. My first full day in Armenia, and I wanted to go out, not just to see, but to feel, to understand what this city has been through and what it's becoming. So today I want to see both sides of Yerevan, not just the postcard stuff, but the real rhythm, the kind of places locals love, the stories that aren't in guidebooks. This city has a Soviet past, and it all starts with the buildings. You can't ignore it. The Soviet bones are everywhere. These huge, boxy buildings weren't designed to be pretty. They were built for function, for power, for survival. But there's something oddly poetic about them now. The chipped balconies, the faded signs, the little bursts of rebellion, pink curtains in a gray room, flower pots on ledges that were never meant to hold beauty. Honestly, this feels like walking through history with no filter. You can see the past, but also how people have tried to make it theirs. A local friend told me these elevators are legendary. Some of them haven't been updated since the 70s. Noisy, unreliable, and weirdly lovable. It's like Yerevan is saying, yeah, this is me, take it or leave it. But walk just 5 minutes from that Soviet block and you'll step into a totally different Yerevan. This cafe, it could be in Berlin or Brooklyn. Artisan coffee, oat milk options, indie music, young people hunched over laptops editing videos, designing posters, writing screenplays. One cappuccino, please, and do you have something local to eat? Here's the twist, though. Even in these hipster spots, tradition sneaks in. That pastry? Gata. But modernized. Less sugar, more design. It's like the city is remixing its roots. I asked the barista what people usually do on weekends here. She said, we go out, we drink wine, we dance, we talk about politics, and we survive. I smiled. That sounds like Armenia in a sentence. Now this place, this was a surprise. It's called Tumo, a free tech and creativity school for teenagers. Coding, animation, music, game design, 3D modeling. But here's the kicker. It's totally free for every Armenian teenager. No tuition, no catch. When you think of Armenia, you don't usually think tech startup capital, but this center is changing that. It's giving the next generation tools to build a new story.
I want to create video games that tell Armenian stories, not just shooters, real stories. Our history is strong. I want people to feel it.
That hit me. This isn't just about digital skills, it's about narrative power, about reclaiming the Armenian voice, not just through monuments and music, but through apps, animation, and algorithms. If you really want to feel Yerevan's transformation, walk through Khnd. It's one of the city's oldest neighborhoods, and in many ways, it hasn't changed much. It's dusty, chaotic, messy, and completely alive. There's a strange beauty in this place. The walls are falling apart, but someone painted a giant sunflower on one. Another has verses from Armenian poetry scribbled in black ink. It's like the whole neighborhood is writing its autobiography in layers. One local told me the city sometimes forgets places like this. But the artists don't. They come here to remind people, look, we are still here. As the sun sets, the city shifts again. The sidewalks get louder, underground clubs. Wine bars. All right, welcome to Soaring Street. If Yerevan has a beating nightlife heart, this is it. Everyone's got a glass in hand. You hear English, French, Persian, Russian, and of course, Armenian. There's this wild mix of cultures that somehow feels effortless. I ordered a local wine, Areni, deep red, smooth, with just enough rebellion. I sat next to a couple who moved back to Armenia from Paris. They said they couldn't stay away. We missed the energy, the pain, the people. You can't fake this kind of real. Yerevan doesn't pretend to be perfect. That's what makes it so easy to love. And then, while walking back, I passed this old Soviet cinema, completely abandoned. Grass growing out of the cracks, posters half torn, half frozen in time, but even that felt right. Like the city is holding space for memory, not to glorify the past, but to remember what it survived. It's strange, you come to a place expecting contrast, but Yerevan doesn't really contrast its past and future. It blends them, like they're part of one long, complicated conversation. So today I saw two Yerevans, one shaped by concrete and survival, and one that's rewriting itself in latte foam and digital dreams. But both are honest, both are human, and both are here, now, side by side. This isn't a city trying to be someone else. It's a city learning to remember and evolve at the same time. And honestly, that's something I didn't even know I needed to see. You don't just walk through Yerevan, you absorb it. One cup of coffee, one crumbling wall, one unexpected song at a time. Good night, city of stone and soul. You're complicated, and that makes you unforgettable. This morning started quietly. There wasn't much traffic. Even the pigeons seemed softer, like the city had lowered its voice. Maybe it was just the fog. Or maybe it knew where I was going. Today, I'm heading to Khndzoresk, the Armenian Genocide Memorial. I've read about it, I've seen photos, but nothing prepares you for visiting it in person. Nothing prepares you for what it holds and what it demands you carry out with you. So it's a bit of a walk from the city center. The trees are dense here. There's barely any noise except the wind and your own footsteps. And I think that's the point. This isn't just a monument, it's a passage. As I walked, I passed a few people, older couples, families, one man alone with a flower in his hand. No one spoke. No one had to. The silence felt like part of the landscape, almost like the trees were listening. Each step reminded me, this isn't a tourist stop. This is sacred ground. You reach a ridge, and suddenly the city stretches out behind slabs, leaning inward like mourners, encircling a fire that never goes out. It's not loud, it's not flashy, it doesn't need to be. This is architecture as grief, clean, precise, and heavy with memory. People leave flowers, they kneel, they touch the stone. You can feel the reverence in the way they move, like they're walking through someone else's pain with respect. I stood there longer than I planned, watched strangers become quiet, watched tears fall wordlessly. I thought of the numbers, 1.5 million Armenians murdered in 1915, but the numbers never tell the full story. The full story is in the silence, and in the fire that never dies. Below the memorial, there's a museum. It's not big, but it doesn't need space. It needs honesty, and that's what it gives. You see their faces, babies, mothers, priests. You read telegrams from Ottoman leaders ordering the killings. You see letters from missionaries who tried to stop them. You see piles of shoes, names of lost villages. And suddenly, it stops being history. It becomes now. I thought I could handle this, but nothing prepares you for this room, the one with survivor testimonies. They're just voices, cracking, whispering, saying names, telling stories no child should ever carry. How do you process that? How do you stand in that space and not shatter a little? I left the museum changed. That sounds cliché, but it's true. I walked in curious. I walked out responsible. Outside, there's a wall. It's simple, just the names of countries that officially recognize the genocide. Some are missing. I used to think history was something in books, dates, maps. But standing here, I realized history isn't about the past. It's about what we choose to remember and what we pretend never happened. The fact that this place even exists, that it stands in the open, unashamed, is powerful. Because for decades, Armenians were told to forget, to move on, to accept silence, but they didn't. They built this. I met a man named Levan. He was here alone, just lighting a candle. I asked gently who he was remembering. My grandmother, he said. She crossed the desert when she was 5. She never forgave the sun for being hot. Do you come here often, I asked. Every year, on April 24th, and when I miss her. He didn't need to say more. Then I saw a group of teenagers arrive, laughing, then going quiet as they approached the fire. One of them wore a shirt that said, Azatutun, freedom. That's when it hit me. The point of this place isn't just to mourn, it's to remind, to teach, to arm the next generation with memory. This isn't an easy vlog to shoot, and honestly, I debated whether to film here at all. Some things feel too sacred for lenses. But I also believe that when you witness something true, something painful and human, you have to carry it with you. You can't unsee it, and maybe you shouldn't. Armenia carries its trauma like stone, not to weigh down but to ground. It offers it, softly, steadily, unflinchingly. The walk back felt different. I noticed more details. A tree bent oddly to one side, a bench with a single white rose on it, a dog sleeping in the sun. I didn't talk, I didn't film. I just let it sit. And then, just like that, the city was back. The cafes, the traffic, the voices. Life goes on, but that silence from the memorial, it stays with you. I don't know how to wrap this part of the journey. I don't have a neat conclusion, and I don't want one. Some places, some histories, deserve to remain open-ended. But I'll say this, if you come to Armenia, don't just come for the views. Come for the memory, come for the silence, come to listen. And when you leave, carry it with you because silence, when remembered, can be the loudest thing in the world. I woke up to a sunrise that felt painted, soft orange clouds melting over ridges, valleys still holding on to sleep. Today's destination, out of the city, out of the noise, into the roots, into something older. We're heading east, toward Garni and Gatehard, two places that couldn't be more different and yet somehow hold the same soul. One is a pagan temple, sharp, proud, Greco-Roman lines standing alone on a cliff. The other, a monastery carved straight into the mountain, half light, half shadow. And somewhere in between, you start to understand something deeper about Armenia. All right, I've got my coffee, a driver who speaks very little English but drives like a poet, and a bag full of curiosity. Let's go find the gods, both old and new. There it was, the Temple of Garni, alone, majestic, proud, columns tall as defiance, shadows falling like verses across the stone. This isn't what I expected. I knew Armenia was the first nation to adopt Christianity as a state religion. But here, before all that, stood a shrine to Mir, the sun god. It doesn't feel like a ruin. It feels like a memory that refuses to fade. It's so intact, like time just paused here out of respect. The Romans would have nodded in approval. This is pure classical symmetry. Yet there's something unmistakably Armenian in the way it stands. It's not flashy. It's not trying to impress. It simply is. Built in the 1st century, destroyed by an earthquake in the 17th, rebuilt in the 20th, stone by stone like an offering to the past. Look at this view. This whole thing, temple, cliff, wind, it's like standing in a poem that never ends. Below is the Azat Gorge. They call it the Symphony of Stones. Basalt columns stacked like a natural organ. And you wonder, did ancient priests chant to that sound? Did Mir answer through the wind? A local woman selling pomegranates told me, Garni is not just a temple. That sound feels older than anything here. Older than gods, older than language. From Garni, it's a short drive to Gegard, but spiritually, it feels like crossing into a new universe. If Garni reaches upward toward the sky, then Gegard digs inward, into the mountain, into silence. The closer we got, the louder the cliffs became. Water trickled somewhere far below. Eagles soared overhead. It felt like nature itself was preparing us. This doesn't look like a church. It looks like the mountain itself grew a soul. Gegard means spear, named after the weapon that pierced Christ's side, which was once kept here. But the real miracle isn't the relic. It's the way the monastery was built, carved. Not stacked, not placed, carved directly into solid mountain. It's colder in here, not just temperature, it's like a deeper kind of stillness. I follow the sound, down dark steps, into a chamber shaped like a cross, and there, three women singing. No microphone, no audience, just pure harmony ringing off volcanic rock. It didn't feel like music, it felt like faith made audible. You don't have to believe in anything to feel this, you just have to listen. The details are everywhere. Crosses carved like lace into stone, inscriptions faded by centuries of candle smoke, names etched by pilgrims hoping to never be forgotten. Gegard isn't just a monastery, it's a mouth carved into the earth. And everything inside it is a prayer. This stone remembers more than most people ever will. Outside, the world returns. Willy women bake lavash in round stone ovens. The smell hits you like comfort itself. A spring flows nearby, cold, sweet, alive. That's the clearest water I've ever tasted. No metaphor, just truth. I sat by the water, watching the monastery disappear into the cliff. Not in a dramatic way, just quietly, as if it had never needed to be seen. Garni and Gegard, one built in light, the other carved from shadow. One worships the sun, the other shelters candles in caves. But both are part of Armenia. This land doesn't erase its layers. It stacks them like sediment. Pagan, Christian, ancient, Soviet, modern, all of it is here, breathing in the same space. If I had to describe today in one word, it would be continuity. I came back to Yerevan with dirt on my boots and something heavier in my chest. Not sadness, not exactly. More like reverence. This country has learned how to carry its past without being crushed by it. Garni and Gegard are proof of that. Different gods, different stones, same spirit. I'll sleep with the window open tonight. Let the wind remind me of what I saw. Let the silence speak a little longer. Some places teach you through stories. Others teach you through feeling. Today taught me both. Some places are shaped by silence, not the kind you escape from, but the kind that heals you. The kind that reminds you how small you are and how whole that can feel. Lake Sevan is one of those places, nearly 1,900 meters above sea level. And it stretches like the sky decided to lie down and rest. Today I left the stone whispers of Yerevan behind, chasing water, chasing stillness, and I found it. There it is. Oh wow, that blue. That's not lake blue, that's dream blue. The road to Sevan is a journey through mood, golden hills, jagged cliffs, tiny roadside chapels. At one point I passed a shepherd whistling to a herd of sheep, like he was conducting a symphony. A few turns later, the lake just appears. No warning, no slow reveal, just boom, endless water at the top of the world. And in the distance, like an island of devotion, a monastery, small, dark, weather-worn, like a thought left behind by someone who didn't need to speak. The monastery is called Sevanavank, Sevan Monastery. Built in the 9th century, originally it sat on an island, but during Soviet times the lake's water level was artificially lowered, and now it rests on a peninsula. Funny how geography changes, but spirit doesn't. This climb isn't long, but it feels like a ritual. Each step takes you higher, farther away from the world, closer to something else. Inside, it's dark, a single candle, the scent of ancient wood, moss, and quiet. No icons, no gold, just stone and stillness. The kind of space where even your thoughts whisper. This wind, it doesn't stop. It's not aggressive, but it's constant, like the lake is breathing. From this height, you can see everything. The town of Sevan far below, little boats bobbing near the shore, clouds casting shadows across the water like slow dancers. It's one of those views that makes you rethink your problems, or at least shrink them. A single catch car stood nearby, barely clinging to the rock. The carvings weathered, almost illegible, but still there, like it's been watching everything for over 1,000 years. The empires, the wars, the floods, the tourists, and still, it holds. Back then, Sevanavank wasn't just a monastery, it was a retreat, a place for monks who'd broken their vows, a kind of sacred exile. They came here to remember why they believed in the first place. There's something deeply human about that, a reminder that even the faithful falter. But instead of punishment, they were given space, silence, water, wind. And maybe that's the real teaching here. It's easy to believe in peace when you're standing in a place like this. Down near the water, the lake becomes less sacred, more lived in. Smoke from fish grills, families laughing over plastic tables, a woman selling homemade jam, and yes, the famous Savan trout. Okay, I just ordered Ishkan. That's Prince fish, the local trout. They grill it right by the water with lemon and herbs. And I swear the view makes it taste even better. I chatted with the owner, a middle-aged man with deep laugh lines and a Soviet tattoo half faded on his forearm.
A little
He
further
said the
down,
lake
I found a
gives
makeshift
art
fish.
market. 3 stalls, maybe 4. No shouting, no sales pressure, just quiet pride. One girl, maybe 17, was painting postcards of the lake, watercolors. I asked her why. Because tourists take selfies, she said. But the lake deserves more than pixels, she smiled. A brush listens better than a lens. Later, I rented a tiny rowboat. No engine, just oars, no one else around. Out there, even the wind goes quiet, you hear your own breath. You hear the water tapping the boat like a metronome. You watch the monastery shrink into a silhouette. The sky stretches wider than seems possible. I don't know what time it is. I don't want to. This is what stillness feels like. Not absence, not emptiness, just presence. There's something cleansing about being alone on water that's been here longer than cities. Water that monks once looked at while questioning their faith. Water that kings once protected. Water that now holds your reflection and doesn't judge. As the sun dipped, the lake turned silver. The wind settled. Bells from Sevanavank rang once, maybe twice. Long, drawn-out notes. You could feel the whole place shifting into night. Not ending, just changing keys. You know, some days don't need conclusions. They just need to be held. Back in the city, everything feels louder. Not in a bad way, just faster, brighter, more awake. But part of me is still on that lake, still floating, still listening. Lake Sevan isn't a place you just visit. It's a place that visits you. It sits with you long after you've left, in your breath, in your pace, in your silence. Tomorrow I'll go somewhere new, but tonight I'm still drifting. Some places wash you. Some places whisper. Sevan does both, without ever needing to say a word. Sometimes the road to faith is vertical, winding, dangerous, silent. In southern Armenia, it is a road suspended in air, a cable pulled across the sky, and it leads not just to a monastery, but to a question. Today, I'm heading to Tatev, a place that feels like myth, a monastery built on the edge of nothing, holding on with stone and belief, and the only way there? A flight over the void. They call it Wings of Tatev, and I can't decide if that's comforting or terrifying. Okay, I'm not technically afraid of heights, but this is something else. This isn't just any cable car. It's the longest non-stop reversible aerial tramway in the world. 5.7 kilometers stretched like a thread over the Vorotan Gorge. No pillars, no stops, just air beneath you and silence. Oh my God, this is unreal. They told me it would take about 12 minutes. That's a long time to be suspended between sky and stone. But time moves differently here. Out there, sheep graze like white dots. A river curls like a silver whisper. The earth feels ancient and still. And then, you arrive. Built in the 9th century, high on a cliff. This doesn't feel like a building. It feels like a prayer someone carved out of fear, and it's still echoing. From up here, the world falls away. This isn't peace like a quiet cafe. This is peace like surrender. Like you're so small, the earth forgets to notice you, and somehow that's comforting. You can see for miles. You can see forever. And in the middle of it, this cluster of churches, cells, and sacred stone. You don't just arrive at Tatev. You yield to it. Inside, it's darker than I expected. The walls are blackened by centuries of incense. The air is thick with memory. They say the church survived earthquakes, invasions, even the Soviets, though not without scars. And still, it stands. Monks here once studied astronomy, philosophy, calligraphy. The Tatev University, founded in the 14th century, was one of the most important centers of learning in medieval Armenia. This wasn't just religion, it was resistance. It's strange how stone can feel alive, like it's holding breath, waiting. At one point, I walked to the very edge. No railing, no glass, just a few wildflowers clinging to the edge of forever. Below, a drop so deep it feels like falling into time. This is where you test your fear, and maybe your faith. Somehow that's what Tatev asks of you. Not belief in doctrine, but belief in balance, in silence, in the fact that some things, like wind and stone and soul, just are. In a side chapel, I met an old woman. She was lighting 3 candles, one for her husband, one for her son, and one, she said, for the future. "Do you come here often?" I asked. She smiled. "Tatev is my therapist. I come when I can't carry myself anymore. The mountain carries me." We didn't speak much after that. We didn't need to. Before I left, I stopped by a tiny stall. No signs, no menu. Just a woman slicing warm gata, that sweet, flaky Armenian pastry, and offering samples of thick honey from hives nearby. Okay, this is officially the best thing I've eaten all week. I bought a little jar of honey, not for the taste, for the memory. The ride back felt different. Same gorge, same cliffs, but I saw more, or maybe felt more. I wasn't just floating over land. I was floating over centuries, over echoes, over a silence so complete it became sound. I used to think awe was rare, but maybe we just forget to look down, or up, or inward. Before heading back north, I spent a little time in the nearby village, a place where time moves slower, where dogs nap in the street, and no one rushes the sunset. A girl ran up to me with a drawing, a picture of the cable car and the monastery. I asked if she liked Tatev. "It flies," she said. "What does?" "The church. It has wings." She giggled and ran off. And somehow, that made perfect sense. I keep thinking about that cliff, about how faith isn't always certainty. Sometimes it's just walking forward, even when there's no railing. That's all we need. Tatev isn't just built on a cliff. It's built on the breath between falling and flight. And somehow, it teaches you to live there. If Armenia had a breath, just one deep ancient breath, I think it would live here, in Dilijan, far from the drama of cliffs and monasteries, far from the dust and stone of the south. This is where the land exhales, into green, into mist, into silence that doesn't demand stillness, but invites it. They call it Armenia's little Switzerland. But that's not quite right. Dilijan doesn't imitate, it remembers. I don't know where I'm going, and for once, I don't need to. Just walking through these trees feels like walking into a story someone else began long ago. These trees, some of them centuries old, lean into each other like they're sharing secrets. Pines, beeches, birch. Their roots tangle across the trails, making you stumble just enough to stay humble. The air smells like pine resin and wet soil, clean, honest. It makes your lungs feel grateful. I think my brain has finally slowed down to the pace of my feet. I wandered into a part of town where time seems to have paused, or maybe just stepped back quietly. Old Dilijan, not a museum, more like a whisper of how things once were. Stone courtyards, lace curtains, carved wooden railings. It doesn't shout for your attention, it hums. She told me this design is from her grandmother's grandmother, that it means hope that roots itself. And somehow that describes Dilijan perfectly. When it started to rain, I ducked into a tea house, the kind of place that smells like mint, books, and rain-soaked wood. A man in a thick sweater brought me tea, wild thyme, gathered from the hills. "It clears the soul," he said. I believed him. There's something about this place that invites you inward, makes you want to write, or think, or remember someone you haven't thought about in years. This isn't sightseeing, this is soul-seeing. Dilijan is more than forests, it's a town of makers. I stumbled into a small artist commune where no one locks their doors, and everyone smells faintly of turpentine and ideas. She told me, "The forest paints through me, I'm just the hand." Her canvases are full of leaves, shadows, storms, not realistic, emotional. Another artist played the duduk not for performance, but to dry his ceramic glaze. "It cracks less," he smiled. In the afternoon, I followed a trail to Pars Lake. The name means clear, and it is. So clear it reflects not just trees, but moods. There were no crowds, just one couple in a rowboat, a boy throwing pebbles, a dog napping near the dock. I sat by the edge, watched dragonflies skim the surface, thought about nothing, or maybe everything. This lake doesn't need your attention, but if you give it, it gives something back. 20 minutes out of town, tucked like a secret into the folds of the forest, is Khndzoresk Monastery. I understood why. Built between the trees part, and suddenly, this pale stone rises like it was grown from the earth itself. Quiet, centered, no grandeur, just grace. The forest doesn't stop at the gate, it enters with you. Wraps the church and leaves in silence. A monk sweeping the path nodded at me. I asked what they do here all day. We listen, he said. To God, to the forest. He speaks through it. Later, I was invited to a local family's home for lunch. No fancy restaurant, just a backyard, a wood-burning stove, and the kind of hospitality that makes you feel like you belong. We had gapama, pumpkin stuffed with rice, dried fruit and cinnamon, fresh lavash, herbs still dewy from the garden, and a wine made from pomegranates that warmed more than just the mouth. I didn't understand half of what they said, but I understood everything they meant. That evening, I sat by a fire with travelers from everywhere: France, Iran, Georgia, Brazil. Someone played guitar, someone else read a poem in Russian. I shared my tea and listened more than I spoke. Above us, stars. So many they blurred together. I don't know their names, but I think we'll remember each other. There's a kind of intimacy that only comes in places like this, where the trees absorb your words and the fire keeps your secrets. This might be the first night I don't need to scroll, or reach, or plan. I just want to lie here and let the forest finish the day for me. Tomorrow, I'll move on. But Dilijan stays. It's not a highlight, it's a heartbeat. Some places sing, some places shout. Dilijan listens. And if you're quiet enough, you'll hear yourself again. If Yerevan is the head of Armenia, then Gyumri is the heart, cracked, repaired, stubbornly beating. A city stitched together with humor and grief, where laughter is both tradition and survival. You don't just visit Gyumri, you meet it, face to face. Eyebrow raised. This is Gyumri, a place that once fell, hard, and decided to get back up by telling the best joke. I arrived by train, the kind that still smells like iron and dust in distant cities. The moment I stepped off, Gyumri greeted me with a shrug, as if to say, "You made it, you're late. Sit down." Everything felt older here, realer, no gloss, just grit and grace. You can tell right away. Gyumri doesn't try to impress you, it dares you to get it. December 7th, 1988. A day that split the city open. A 6.8 magnitude earthquake flattened homes, churches, schools. Over 25,000 people died across the region. Gyumri was the epicenter. Some buildings still wear the scars. Broken columns, leaning walls, hollow windows. You don't need a guidebook to feel the loss. It hangs in the air like smoke. You don't rebuild after something like that. You continue. And Gyumri did. Khndzoresk is one of the few places in Armenia where pre-Soviet architecture still stands proud. Faces peeking through curtains, men smoking slowly like they're burning the hours. This district is 19th century poetry meets 1980s tragedy meets today's bad haircut. And somehow, it works. Gyumri is known for many things: artists, poets, craftsmen, but above all, comedians. Even after the earthquake, Gyumri didn't lose its sense of humor. If anything, it sharpened it. Locals say, when the earth takes your house, you can cry, or you can sit on the rubble and tell a story that makes your neighbor laugh. Gyumri humor is dry, loud, clever. Like a toast with a punchline. I found a blacksmith in his 70s. Big hands, bigger eyebrows. He offered me tea before I could say hello. He makes ornamental iron gates. Said each twist is a story. Sometimes tragedy, sometimes comedy, always forge hot. Across the street, a woman embroidered church domes in shades of gray. I don't paint and color anymore, she said, but I smile more than I used to. Gyumri is full of people like this. Fractured artists, tender rebels, makers who build with what's left. Dinner in Gyumri isn't just food, it's performance, it's endurance, it's therapy. I was invited by a local family who served tolma, grape leaves stuffed with spiced meat, and poured mulberry vodka like it was water. One uncle made a toast for every year since the earthquake. Another sang a song halfway through his soup. No one rushed, no one checked phones. Everything mattered. I think I just got adopted. The Church of the Holy Savior was shattered in 1988. Its dome collapsed. Its bell tower leaned like an exhausted saint. And yet, people still came, still come. Inside, there are no grand icons, just scaffolding, dust, light, and still, women light candles. Children sit quietly. Faith, like the building, never fully left. You don't have to believe in God to understand devotion. Just look around. It's been over 3 decades since the earthquake, and yet these domics still exist. Metal boxes meant for one winter, holding families for a lifetime. Some paint flowers on the walls. Others grow tomatoes beside rusted doors. There's anger here, resignation too, but more than anything, persistence. You, quietly. What do you call a home that shouldn't exist, but does? In Gyumri, you call it reality. At night, I found a puppet theater. Small stage, wooden puppets, flickering lights. They performed a story about a boy who loses his village in an earthquake and finds it again in a dream. No dialogue, just movement and music. I looked around. Grown men were crying. Grief here has rhythm. It dances, it laughs, and then it returns to the dark until tomorrow. Gyumri doesn't try to be pretty. It doesn't ask to be liked. It simply is, broken, hilarious, honest. And when you lie in bed here under a cracked ceiling and wool blanket, you don't dream of escape. Gyumri is survival with a punchline, tragedy with a belly laugh, a broken heart that never stopped beating. Just learn to dance out of rhythm. There are places in the world where the silence is so sharp, it almost stings. Places that speak in echo, in light, in the hush that follows a question no one ever asked out loud. Noravank is one of those places. A monastery carved into blood-red rock, not perched on the canyon, but inside it, as if it bloomed from the stone like a prayer with no beginning. Today, I came here looking for beauty, but I think I found something older. There it is, like something imagined, but real. The road to Noravank is a journey through contrast. Dust and wind, jagged stone, soft sky, heat, and then suddenly shade. The Yamagu Gorge doesn't welcome you, it sizes you up. The cliffs rise like they're guarding something sacred or secret. And then, just as you begin to wonder if you've taken a wrong turn, it opens, and Noravank is there, like a secret finally shared. Built in the 13th century, Noravank was once a center of culture, theology, art. But standing here, you don't feel history, you feel presence. It's quiet, but not empty, more like someone just finished praying. These aren't decorations, they're declarations, messages sent across centuries, and they're still arriving. At the heart of Noravank stands the Serb Ashtvatsatsin church, tall, slender, unyielding. But the most remarkable thing? The staircase. A narrow set of stone steps climbs the facade itself, no railing, just air, inviting you to walk straight up into faith. Okay, this is beautiful and slightly terrifying. One wrong step and you're kissing centuries-old gravel. But the view from the top? It feels earned. From up here, the monastery doesn't feel like a building. It feels like a bridge between earth and sky, between prayer and presence. Noravank was once the spiritual seat of the Orbelian princes who protected Armenia's faith through sword and scroll. One of them, Prince Bertel, is buried beneath this very church. His tomb rests under the narthex, his legacy still written in stone. But it's the architect who truly haunts this place. Momik, artist, scribe, sculptor. A man who carved stone like it was paper. He designed the church, carved the kachkars, and, legend says, fell in love with a princess whose father refused him. They say he built her this church, so perfect, so impossible, that it changed the king's heart, or maybe broke his own. These are kachkars, sacred stones unique to Armenia. Every one of them different, not mass-produced faith, but hand-carved devotion. Some are weathered to the point of fading, others still sharp, still fierce. One had a pattern so delicate it looked like lace. Imagine carving that into rock with your hands, with your time, with your life. They say the carvers would fast before
I watched a
sculpting,
family pose for
would pray.
pictures.
2 women trying to fix their hair in the wind, a man zooming in on the canyon with a phone. I wondered what they were capturing. Because Noravank isn't photogenic, it's soulgenic. It doesn't show up well on camera, but it stays in you. Like a line from a dream you almost forgot. Take the photos, but then Sit, listen, let the canyon say what it came to say. Inside one of the smaller chapels, I met a monk. He said almost nothing, just nodded, offered me a match to light a candle. I asked him what people pray for most here. He smiled. The same thing they pray for everywhere, he said, to be heard. He didn't ask where I was from. He didn't need to. Faith doesn't need passports. I found a spot near the edge, no guardrail, just stone and sky. An eagle circled above. Slow, silent, it didn't dive, didn't hunt, just glided, like it knew something I didn't, like it had always been here. Some places teach by speaking, others by staying. Noravank doesn't explain itself, it just exists and dares you to exist with it. Before I left, I shared a simple lunch with a couple I met on the trail, Armenians from Glendale, California. They came to feel where our blood came from, the man said. We ate lavash and goat cheese, drank tart red wine. The woman handed me a piece of apricot jam. I didn't know their names, but the silence between us was comfortable, like we were all carrying the same old story, just in different languages. As the sun began to fall, Noravank changed. The cliffs caught fire, the stones glowed, and the monastery, this silent keeper of centuries, seemed to rise just a little higher. I didn't want to leave, but I did, because places like this don't want you to stay. They want you to carry them. This wasn't a visit, it was a listening, and I'm still hearing it now. Some prayers aren't spoken, some churches aren't closed, and some places are made of stone and silence and something older than belief. Noravank is one of them. Sometimes the sacred comes in opposites. One is a cave, the other a temple under the open sky. One echoes with chants, the other sings in silence. But both whisper something ancient. In Armenia's Azot River Gorge, Gegard and Garni sit like punctuation marks, one carved into the dark rock of faith, the other lifted into the geometry of the sun. You don't choose between them, you visit both, because the divine here is not singular, it's layered. I arrived at Gegard early, before the crowds, before the bells. Mist hung in the canyon like old incense. The cliffs were close, protective, and the monastery itself, almost invisible, like the mountains simply gave way and made space for belief. This feels less like entering a church and more like entering a memory. Gegard means spear, named after the spear that pierced Christ. But the rest is cut directly into the mountain. Cave chapels, hollowed-out sanctuaries, crosses carved into walls like wounds. This is not decoration, it's devotion that went deep enough to become stone. The deeper I walked, the more the light disappeared, until the only illumination came from flickering flames and the occasional shaft of sun slicing through the rock like a divine reminder. And then, a sound, a single female voice, singing. No microphone, no music, just human breath, vibrating against 12 centuries of stone. You, eyes closed. I don't understand the words, but I understand the ache, the echo, the offering. Outside, faith continues, not in stone but in gesture. Ribbons tied to sacred trees, coins pressed into rock crevices, small prayers folded into the bark. A woman touches the cold spring water and crosses herself. A child tosses pebbles into a niche for luck. No sermon, no instruction, just instinct. This place doesn't preach, it listens. Just 20 minutes away, a completely different story. Where Gegard withdraws into rock, Garni opens into air. A lone Greco-Roman pagan temple, standing in full symmetry, daring the mountains to match its form. Built in the 1st century, dedicated to Mir, the sun god. Today it stands, not as ruins, but as reminder. This feels like stepping into music, a rhythm made of stone. Unlike anything else in Armenia, Garni is pure geometry. Columns, proportions, precision, and yet it doesn't feel cold. It feels exposed, honest, like a body standing proud in sunlight after a storm. This isn't a temple designed to be beautiful. It's a temple designed to belong. Garni is Armenia's last surviving pagan temple, the final song of a world that faded when Christianity arrived. But even now it sings, not in words, but in wind, in shadow, in space. And you feel it. not as nostalgia, but as recognition. Faith comes in many languages. Some are whispered, some are carved, some are just silence under sky. Everyone who comes here takes the same photo, temple in front, arms wide, back to the camera. And yes, it's beautiful, but the real picture, it's to the side. It's the cracks in the stone, the grass growing through ancient thresholds, the young couple reading poetry under the columns. Garni's power isn't in posing, it's in pausing. This is not a backdrop, it's a threshold. At dusk, I climbed a hill that looked down on both Garni and Gegard, the pagan and the Christian, the sunlit and the shadowed, stone on two sides of one soul. The light touched both, no distinction, just warmth. Sometimes we build churches to hold God in. Sometimes we build temples to meet God outside. But maybe the divine is in the building. Maybe it's in the space between. Before leaving, I was offered wine by a family living just beneath Garni. They poured it from a reused plastic bottle. No need to choose. It was no need to divide. You, smiling, cheeks red. Garni shows the sky. Gegard shows the soul. Both show Armenia. Tonight, I can still hear both places. Gegard humming low, carved in devotion. Garni ringing high, open to stars. I came here looking for history, but I found something older than time, something still echoing. Stone remembers, light forgives, and somewhere between them a traveler sits quietly and is changed. There are places that feel like pauses, not endings, not beginnings, just spaces where breath deepens and time forgets to chase itself. Lake Sevan is one of them. It's not just Armenia's lake, it's its sea, its mirror, its sky held in water. Up here, nearly 2,000 meters above sea level, the air is thinner, and somehow, so is thought. You don't come to Sevan to do, you come to be. I had seen photos, I had read descriptions. The Pearl of Armenia, they called it. But nothing prepares you for the first glimpse of Sevan. It's too big to be pretty, too wild to be soft. It doesn't glisten. It glows from inside. It looks like the sea forgot to leave, like the sky had a child and left it behind. On a peninsula once isolated as an island sits Sevanavank, a 9th century monastery that feels like it was built for solitude and storms. The monks who once lived here were warriors in black robes, protecting both borders and beliefs. There's something raw about this place, not polished, not pristine, but present, solid, like it remembers everything. Down by the water, I met a fisherman named Arman, sunburnt, barefoot, eyes like driftwood. He'd been fishing Sevan since he was 12. The lake speaks, he told me. You just have to get quiet enough to hear her. We shared bread and fish, freshly grilled Ishkan trout, butter and herbs, no ceremony, just flavor, fingers, and wind. Best fish I've ever had? Maybe it's the salt in the wind, or the silence in the morning. Back in Soviet times, Sevan was the Riviera of Armenia, trainloads of vacationers, loud music, vodka in the water. Now some of those resorts stand empty, their walls peeling, their diving boards rusted, their echoes still floating. Even ruins here have rhythm. You can almost hear the laughter that once bounced off these walls. Later, I took a kayak. No destination, just movement. Out on the water, time stretches. There are no sounds but your own. The splash of the paddle, the slap of water against the hull, your own heartbeat catching up with the wind. I think this is the closest I've come to feeling small in the best possible way. Locals say the wind here has names. Morning wind, evening wind, storm wind, whisper wind. Some bring fish, some bring fog, some bring memories. 11. Today's wind was the kind that sat on rocks warmed by sun, ate meat grilled over coals, passed cups of cold apricot juice. They argued about politics, laughed about everything else. 7 makes people kinder, one of them said, or maybe hungrier. Hard to tell, but I felt full, in more ways than one. Not far from 7, in Noradis, the lake seems to spill into stone. An ancient cemetery where 900 kachkars rise from the earth like a language you almost understand. Each one hand-carved, each one a prayer, a memory, a warning, a song. Some are weathered to whispers, others sharp enough to bleed if you touch them wrong. This is not a graveyard. This is an alphabet of grief and faith. And somehow, standing among them, you don't feel sad. You feel seen. As the sun began to set, the lake changed. It went from blue to brass, from cold to glowing, from mirror to memory. Children played, couples leaned into each other, even the birds flew slower, and I sat on a stone, letting it all unfold, not as a show, but as a farewell. 7 doesn't need you to stay, but it asks you to notice. And if you do, it gives you back to yourself. Tonight, I sleep by the lake. The wind hums, the water moves without sound, and in the distance, somewhere between stars and memory, I can still feel the day behind me. You writing, Lake Sevan is not just water, it's breath, of the land, of the people, of me. Some places pour themselves into you, drop by drop, wind by wind, wave by wave. Sevan does not ask, it gives, and it stays. Before there was a country, before borders or constitutions or flags, there was Etchmiadzin, a place not just of stone but of soul, not just of prayer but of presence. This is the heart of Armenian Christianity, and somehow it beats gently, like an old hymn that never stopped humming beneath history's noise. Today I'm not walking through a monument, I'm walking through memory. The Mother Cathedral of Holy Etchmiadzin is not the largest in the world. It doesn't glitter with gold. Its stones don't shine. They breathe. This is the oldest cathedral in the world, built in 301 AD after Armenia became the first nation to adopt Christianity as its state religion. And yet, it doesn't feel ancient. It feels awake. You don't need to believe in God to feel something stir here. Faith has its own language, and Etchmiadzin speaks fluently. Legend says this place was chosen in a dream. Saint Gregory the Illuminator saw Christ descend from the heavens, strike the ground with a golden hammer, and command a cathedral be built right here. The name Etchmiadzin means the only begotten descended. I don't know if it was a dream, but if it was, it shaped 1,000 years of waking. The bells here don't ring like alarms. They unfold like breath, calling not to action, but to like it remembers a time when clocks were irrelevant. In the museum beside the cathedral, time is kept in ink and thread and silence. There are Bibles older than nations, written by hand under candlelight, illustrated with care so precise it feels like prayer. A spearhead said to be the spear of Longinus, a sliver of Noah's Ark. Priestly robes faded like petals from the past. Every object here holds a story, but none of them shout. They wait for someone willing to listen. Etchmiadzin is not just one cathedral. It's a constellation, a collection of sacred chapels named after saints, most of them women, most of them martyrs. Saint Herpsime, strong stone, dark corners, the echo of footsteps that sound like history remembering itself. Saint Gaian, gentler, lighter, full of song and soft shadow. Shogokot, my favorite. The name means ray of light, and that's exactly what it felt like. Even the quiet here is shaped, even the stillness has architecture. I didn't expect to find joy here, not loud joy, not laughter, but the joy of continuity. A nun offered me water. A young boy read from a Bible in classical Armenian. A sparrow nested beneath the carved feet of an angel. Everything is alive, because faith here is not preserved in a jar. It's practiced in gardens, in walking, in breath. Some places want to convince you in over decazin day, but it's amazing what you want, Etchmiadzin just wants to continue. His name was Levon. 22. Eyes full of light, voice full of calm. He said he chose this path not because he had all the answers, but because this was the only place where his questions felt safe. Etchmiadzin is a question, he told me. We just keep answering it with our lives. Sometimes a conversation can feel holier than a sermon. Evening at Etchmiadzin is velvet. Everything softens, everything slows. The chants rise, the light bends, and the cathedral seems to exhale. Candles are lit. Aroma of frankincense curls through the air. Chants in Armenian, deep, resonant, earthbound, fill the high domes like rising smoke. I didn't know the words, but I felt them, like water on skin, like memory in the blood. Tonight, I think about what it means to have a place like this. A spiritual anchor, a home that never left its people, even when its people were scattered. Armenia has known exile. It has known silence, but it has also known Etchmiadzin. This place doesn't make faith easy. It makes it honest, like a spine, like a stone you choose to carry because you believe in the shape it gives you. Faith is not a place, but this place reminds you how to begin looking. Stone by stone, prayer by breath, Etchmiadzin endures, not because it must, but because it means. Some places don't speak with voices. They speak in leaves, in wind, in the hush between bird calls and breath. Dilijan doesn't announce wet pine and wood smoke. It doesn't hum with the ghosts of poets and painters. It doesn't feel like Dilijan. You, walking under dripping trees. You don't visit this town. You wander into it. The forest here isn't wild, it's old. It feels like it's been watching for centuries, not with menace, but with memory. Oak, beech, pine, all tangled together like 1,000 green thoughts rising at once. The path beneath my feet was soft, padded by leaves and time. No traffic, no screens, just breath and footstep and birds I couldn't name. There's a kind of quiet here that isn't Emmy, it's listening. Old Dilijan looks like it was built by someone with a good memory, handcrafted, held together by smoke and song and stubbornness. The houses have balconies that sag just a little, like they've leaned in for decades, whispering to one another. Smoke rises from chimneys that burn real wood, not for show, for warmth. And behind those carved doors, craftsmen, people whose hands carry knowledge older than textbooks. It feels like the buildings themselves are made of time, like the past hasn't left. It just moved upstairs. In a tiny workshop that smelled like dust and pine sap, I met a man who made duduks, the Armenian flute. He didn't say much, just offered me a seat, picked one up and played. 3 notes, that's all. But they cut through me, like sorrow in sunlight. In another corner, a potter shaped a teacup, hands moving like prayer. He said, "This clay has memory. You must not fight it." I think he was talking about more than clay. Dilijan doesn't just make crafts, it makes thinkers. Writers, painters, musicians, drawn here for the solitude, the stillness, the space between. One photo showed a poet with tired eyes and a cigarette burning like a deadline. Next to it, a quote, "When the forest grows into your ribs, you no longer need permission to write." Over tea, I scribbled notes, not to publish, just to keep the rhythm going. There's something sacred about places that protect poets, something revolutionary even. When the rain began, no one seemed surprised, like it was just another guest arriving late, welcomed without fuss. I stood beneath a walnut tree, just watching, rain tapping rooftops, rain dimpling puddles, rain like punctuation on the silence. In Dilijan, the rain doesn't ruin the day, it finishes the sentence. I ended the afternoon with a meal that felt like a forest had cooked it. Kashlama. Lamb slow-cooked with vegetables, so tender they whispered. Mushroom toma. Wild mushrooms wrapped in grape leaves, thick slices of lavash, still warm, folded like love letters. The waitress offered tan, cold yogurt drink, and homemade compote. Every bite was a thank you to the land. Even the food here speaks in hushes. Nothing screams, it just lingers. I found her by accident, the loom creaking gently through an open window.
It's a transformation.
Inside.
You arrive. Changed, Tatev rises from the cliff like it was grown, not built. Founded in the 9th century, it was once one of the most important spiritual and educational center in Armenia. A university, a monastery, a fortress of thought, ink, and silence. Even now, it feels alive, not with noise, but with presence. This isn't just architecture, it's belief, anchored in stone. The main church, Saints Paul and Peter, is cool and shadowed, stone walls flicker with candlelight, the air smells like old incense and cold wind. Every step echoes, not just physically, emotionally. I stood beneath the dome and listened, not for sound, for feeling. Softly. I've been to churches, but this one feels like it's watching you back. Centuries ago, scholars walked these halls, studying astronomy, philosophy, mathematics, theology, while Europe burned or slept through the Middle Ages. Tatev taught, scrolls. Candles. Minds sharp as the cliffs below, to study here was to train both thought and soul. To understand the heavens not just with eyes, but with awe. These stones held knowledge, and they haven't let go. Near the edge stands a column called the Khndzoresk. It moves, yes, a stone column that sways, built 900 years ago to detect earthquakes. Or divine imbalance, no mortar. Just balance. I placed my hand against it, it trembled, not with fear, but with awareness. How do you build something to last centuries, and still let it move? The view from Tatev is not a view, it's a confrontation, with scale, with silence, with the sheer, impossible beauty of being small. The Vorodin Gorge stretches below, wild, untouched, vast. Birds soar beneath you, clouds cast shadows like slow-moving thoughts. Here, you're not above the earth, you're part of its dreaming. Monks lived here, prayed, wrote, gardened. They lit fires to keep warm in winters so brutal the cliffs turned to ice. They carved
One step at
crosses,
a time,
cooked simple
I'm walking
meals.
between centuries. To reach Khndzoresk, you don't just arrive, you earn it. A suspension bridge connects the new village above to the cave dwellings below. With each step, the world falls away. The wind rushes up, and the rope creaks softly, like it remembers stories it doesn't dare repeat aloud. You, half laughing, half in awe. It's not fear I feel. It's reverence. Because every footstep is a conversation with the past. Hundreds of families once lived here, not in houses, but in caves. Warm in winter, cool in summer. Homes with fire pits, bread ovens, altars, carved by hand into the stone itself. It wasn't poverty. It was persistence. A way of life molded by wind, rock, and need. The past isn't dead. It's just quieter here. Even here. Even in the cracks of the cliffs, they built a church. Not large, not grand, but faithful.
Because some prayers
It
are made
still
of
stands.
stone.
Inside I lit a candle. Not for religion, but for recognition. For the thousands who called this place home, who loved, fought, and died in these caves. This is what resilience sounds like. It echoes. Her name was Zaruhi. She was born in a cave, married in a cave, and moved to the upper village only in the 1950s. Her hands are folded like dry leaves, but her eyes are wild with light. This place remembers, she told me. That's why it still breathes. She offered me walnuts and stories, both cracked open gently. Some people carry whole villages inside them. The climb back is harder. But I didn't mind, because every step up was a step out, from memory into meaning. The sun began to drop. The bridge behind me swayed softly, and I knew this wasn't the end, just the last page of this chapter. I came for landscapes, but I leave with legacies. Armenia is not loud. It doesn't demand. It doesn't
really
seduce.
listen,
You'll find a country that speaks not in monuments, but in murmurs. Stone, water, wood, wind, memory, and people who carry pain like poetry and joy like warm bread. In Armenia, I didn't just travel. I remembered. Not my own history, but something deeper, something older. The feeling of being human, raw, wondering, walking, with hands outstretched to the earth and eyes turned towards sky. This land doesn't change you loudly, it just stays inside you, like a song you didn't know you knew. And long after the flight home, you'll find yourself humming it. This was Armenia, and it was enough.